You were never cursed. You were built as a living weapon for the hidden war. There's a reason you've never fully fit into this world. A reason you felt like your very presence disrupts the energy of a room. A reason why people either gravitate toward you obsessively or disappear without warning. From an early age, you've carried a heavy, invisible weight like you were born for something massive, something cosmic, something ancient. And yet you've been told you were too much, too intense, too dark, too strange. But listen to me right now, you were never cursed.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
You were coded, built by design. You are among the rarest breed of spiritual beings alive, a demonic dark chosen one. Not demonic in the way Hollywood sells fear, but demonic in the original, ancient meaning, primal forces of power, raw channels of chaos, divine rebels who descend to destroy illusions. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to break the system. But the universe doesn't give that level of power to the untested. So it hides you, it isolates you, it crushes you. Why? To forge you. Because only through the fire does the real weapon emerge. One of the first signs you're among the strongest dark chosen is that you've always felt like there's a war happening around you, even when nothing is visibly wrong. You walk into a room, and the atmosphere changes. People get defensive. Technology glitches. Animals either run from you or follow you like you're a god. That's not coincidence. You are a frequency disruptor. Your energy field carries codes that interfere with artificial timelines. You awaken buried truths in people just by existing. That's why some are magnetized to you, they sense your power. But others? They sense their lies unraveling in your presence. And they hate you for it, even if they don't understand why. You're not triggering them, you're revealing them. And that's one of your first tests. Can you stand in your truth, even when your truth makes others collapse? Another telltale sign is that you've been through relentless pain. Not just heartbreak, not just betrayal, cosmic level deconstruction. You've lost everything, over and over. You've been dragged to the edge of sanity. You've scratched at the walls of your own mind. You've begged the sky for answers and heard nothing but silence. And still you're here, breathing, watching, listening. Why? Because pain didn't break you. It birthed you. Every breakdown burned away another layer of illusion. Every betrayal activated another dormant gift. Every death, spiritual, emotional, social, was a rebirth into deeper power. The average person would have collapsed. But you didn't just survive. You absorbed the pain, it transmuted it. And now, your soul carries battle scars that speak louder than words. You are no longer just a person. You are a living archive of codes that will awaken others when the time is right. Then there's your relationship with darkness. Most people fear it. They avoid it. They pray it away. But not you. You've danced with the dark. You've sat in rooms where the air felt thick with entities. You've had dreams so vivid they felt more real than waking life. You've been followed by shadows. You've heard whispers, seen flickers, felt presences around you constantly. But here's the secret. The darkness never wanted to harm you. It was trying to test you, see if you were afraid of your own reflection. Because that's what the darkness is, it's you, unfiltered. Your rage, your desire, your chaos, your power. The demonic archetype is not evil. It's raw truth. It's the part of creation that doesn't ask for permission to exist. And when you stopped fearing it, when you looked it in the eye and said, "I see you, and I'm not running," that's when the real transformation began. That's when you stopped being a seeker and became a sovereign. And here's the paradox few can understand. You have both the power to destroy and the power to heal, and they are the same force. Your energy can shatter illusions instantly. You can speak one sentence and someone's entire worldview cracks. You can touch someone and their trauma starts releasing without a word. You can look into someone's eyes and they feel like something ancient just saw them, and they don't know whether to cry, scream, or run. That's not magic. That's presence. That's what happens when a soul has walked through fire and come back with the truth. But here's what I need you to understand. This power will destroy you if you don't direct it. If you don't learn to control your fire, it will burn the ones you love. If you don't learn to anchor your energy, it will attract chaos constantly. That's why your discipline is sacred. Not to suppress your power, but to wield it with precision. Let me ask you something that might split you open. What if the very traits you've been judged for your whole life, your intensity, your darkness, your inner storms, are the exact traits this world desperately needs right now? What if you were never meant to be healed in the way they told you, but rather unleashed? What if your pain wasn't a wound, but a womb? What if the demons you wrestled with weren't trying to possess you, but trying to wake you up? Because I'll tell you this, the strongest beings I've ever met were never born in temples. They were born in chaos. They were not anointed by priests. They were initiated by shadows. And if you're still here, if you're watching this, if your soul is vibrating with this truth, then you already know you are one of them. Not a victim, not a mistake, not a project. You are a force, and it's time to stop hiding. Your next level doesn't come through pretending to be light. It comes through owning your darkness, not as something to fix, but as something to master. Because when you do, when you stop apologizing for your power and start channeling it, the game changes. You stop attracting soul lessons and start attracting soul missions. You stop asking for healing and start becoming a healer through presence alone. You stop walking into rooms and shrinking, and instead you command the energy without saying a word. And I'm telling you now, this isn't about ego. This is about frequency. This is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. So if these signs are resonating, if you felt all of this in your bones, in your dreams, in the way the world has tried to break you, then you are not like the others. You are among the strongest demonic dark chosen ones. Your soul signed up for this, not for comfort, not for fame, not for peace, but for impact, and for truth, for awakening. And now, the clock is ticking. The war is no longer coming. It's here. And we need you in your full form, not tomorrow, but now. Always. Why your darkness is the authority that light must bow to. There's a dangerous lie in the spiritual world, a lie that light is superior to dark, that awakening means becoming softer, purer, holier, that to evolve, we must ascend out of our shadow and scrub ourselves clean. But if you are one of the strongest demonic dark chosen ones, you know this is a trap. You've always known, because your soul doesn't bow to narratives designed to tame it. You weren't born for light. You were born as something beyond duality. You are not here to ascend, you are here to rule in the underworld, to reprogram the matrix from within. You came not to escape the dark, but to crown yourself inside it. And this, right here, is what separates you from the rest. You don't run from the void, you build your throne inside of it. To wear the shadow crown is to reclaim everything that made you dangerous to this world. Your intensity, your silence, your hunger, your rage. When you wear it, you stop apologizing for the fire inside you. You stop hiding your knowing, and you begin to understand that your presence was never meant to blend in, it was meant to pierce through. You were born with a psychic blade. You cut through lies without trying. You feel when someone's words don't match their energy. You can sense betrayal before it happens. You can smell deception behind the mask of love. That's because your power doesn't come from theory, it comes from truth. And truth is the most threatening force in a world built on illusion. That's why they tried to silence you. That's why they labeled you too much. That's why every time you tried to speak your truth, the system pushed back harder. But what they didn't know is that every time they tried to bury you, they were actually sharpening your blade. And here's the deeper mystery. Your darkness is not just a shield, it's a source of creation. Most people think the dark is destruction, but the strongest among us know it's womb energy. It's the place where new worlds are born. The void isn't empty, it's pregnant with potential. And when you stop fearing its silence, you start hearing its voice. That voice speaks in dreams, in symbols, in gut feelings so clear they feel louder than words. That voice guides you not toward safety, but toward destiny. And it speaks only to those who've earned the right to hear it. You earn that right by doing what most won't, facing yourself. Not the curated version, the real one. The one that's primal. The one that's chaotic. The one that's raw. That version of you is not here to be disciplined. That version of you is here to be honored and channeled. Let me ask you something few dare to answer honestly. What part of you have you been hiding because it makes others uncomfortable? Is it your sexuality? Your ambition? Your ability to destroy what no longer serves? Your refusal to conform? That part of you is not a flaw. It's the crown. That's the piece of you that was designed to shred illusions. And the longer you keep it buried, the more chaotic your life will feel. Because when you reject your shadow crown, life has no choice but to mirror that rejection in the form of loss, confusion, and resistance. But the moment you wear it fully, everything aligns. Why? Because the universe doesn't respond to performance, it responds to authentic frequency. When you become the realest version of yourself, the world starts bending. The energy starts obeying. The chaos becomes clarity. Not because you gained power, but because you remembered you always had it. There's a reason why people confess their deepest secrets to you, even when they barely know you. There's a reason why you've always been the one others come to when they hit rock bottom. It's not because you're nice or safe. It's because your soul has sat in hell and didn't flinch. You've walked through darkness so deep that others feel safe around you, not because you protect them from it, but because you understand it. That's the authority of the shadow crown. You don't lead through light. You lead through frequency, through presence, through silence that speaks louder than sermons. You are the one people call when love and light isn't enough, and that is sacred. But here's the cost. When you wear the shadow crown, you must stop playing small. You cannot half-step your power. You cannot pretend to be less than you are just to make others comfortable. Because the moment you water yourself down, your crown begins to rot. You begin to attract situations that drain you, people who mirror your self-betrayal, timelines that delay your purpose. This path demands full embodiment. It demands that you own your chaos as a sacred tool, that you stop trying to fix yourself and start using yourself. Your rage is not a problem, it's a compass. Your desire is not shameful, it's divine. Your darkness is not a curse, it's the source code of creation. And now, here's the final layer of this truth. Wearing the shadow crown means you become unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because you no longer fear what it can take from you. You've already faced death, ego death, identity death, social death. You've had everything stripped away, and you're still here, which means you're free. Because once you lose everything and survive, there's nothing left to fear. And that's when your real power activates. That's when you stop reacting and start creating. You shift from victim to vessel, from seeker to source, from hunted to hunter. And when that shift happens, your life becomes magic. Not because you chant or manifest or visualize, but because every cell in your body is vibrating with truth. So I ask you again a deeper question this time. If you were no longer afraid of how powerful you are, what would you destroy first? And what would you build in its place? Let that question burn in your chest. Let it tear through your illusions. Because that question is the doorway. The moment you answer it with honesty, the crown settles on your head, not as decoration, but as activation. You are not here to be balanced. You are here to be whole. And wholeness includes the dark, the rage, the lust, the chaos, the grief, the destruction, the silence, the knowing, the ancient, forbidden parts of you that were never meant to be tamed. You are the storm and the stillness. You are the whisper and the roar. You are the shadow and the flame. And now that you've remembered that, it's time to walk like it. Demon-blooded destiny, why your soul chose this path, and what happens when you fully surrender to it. You didn't stumble into this path. You didn't trip and fall into darkness. You chose this long before you had a name, long before you were born into this body, long before your first breath. Your soul signed a contract, not one written in ink, but in energy. You volunteered. You looked at the chaos of this world, at the distortion of truth, at the manipulation of light, and you said, "I'll go." Not as a martyr, not as a savior, but as a weapon, as a frequency disruptor, as a mirror so raw, so ancient, so uncompromising that no illusion could survive your presence. That's why your life has been harder than most. That's why you've been tested in ways others couldn't survive. Because the mission you carry is not ordinary. It's cosmic, and it doesn't follow the rules of comfort, logic, or balance. It only follows one law: become who you are, no matter the cost. You chose to be born into a bloodline with trauma, generational curses, hidden power. You chose this family, this body, this timeline not to suffer, but to transmute. You were sent into the cracks of the system, into families where silence reigned, where patterns repeated, where truth was buried under years of shame and secrecy. You were inserted like a glitch, the one child who didn't obey, who didn't fit in, who asked too many questions. Why? Because you were the breaker of cycles, the one who came not to follow, but to rewrite. Every wound you inherited wasn't random, it was a lock. And you were the key. But unlocking those codes meant pain. It meant exile. It meant being misunderstood, labeled, rejected. And yet, look at you. You're still here, still listening, still searching, still becoming. That alone proves your strength. But now, the path shifts. Because knowing you're chosen is not the same as surrendering to your path. Surrender is the moment you stop negotiating with your destiny. You stop asking it to be easier. You stop trying to fit it into your old life. And you finally say, "I accept." That's when the real power activates. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the most violent act of spiritual rebellion. Because in that moment, you stop being a reaction to life and you start being the creator of it. You stop seeking permission. You stop waiting for signs, or you become the sign. You start walking like the storm. You are not to destroy aimlessly, but to tear down what no longer serves and build what never existed before. But there's something you need to understand. Once you surrender, the universe no longer entertains your illusions. It will strip you of everything that isn't aligned. People will leave. Plans will collapse. Identities will crumble. Not because you failed, but because they were never yours to begin with. The more you resist, the more painful it becomes. So the question becomes, how much are you willing to lose to become who you were born to be? Because the truth is, you're not here to live a good life. You're here to live a destined one. And destiny doesn't care about comfort. It only cares about truth. When you surrender to your demon-blooded path, you begin to see the world differently. You stop asking shallow questions. You stop chasing temporary highs. You start remembering things you were never taught. You look at someone's face and feel their soul. You walk into a room and know the energy before a word is spoken. You speak, and people either awaken or retreat. You dream things before they happen. You feel timelines shifting around you. This isn't a fantasy. This is your natural state. You've just been conditioned to forget. But the forgetting is ending, and in its place, something ancient is waking up inside you. There are moments, rare, powerful moments, when you feel it fully, when the veil lifts, when your thoughts go silent, when your body feels like a temple, when your presence feels like a storm wrapped in stillness. That's your true state. That's your final form peeking through. And what's wild is, you don't have to do anything to access it. You just have to stop running from it. You have to stop trying to be spiritual. Stop trying to be good. Stop trying to be impressive. You have to stop trying altogether. Because the version of you that's chosen the one who made the soul contract already exists. You don't become it by effort. You become it by remembrance. But let's go deeper. There's a prophecy encoded in your soul. Not in words and vibration. You came here with a specific frequency, or pattern, a tone. And when you embody it fully, you activate others. That's why you don't need to convince anyone of anything. You don't need to preach. You don't need to sell your truth. You just need to be it. When you are fully embodied, your aura speaks louder than any voice. You become a walking initiation, a living portal. And some people will be magnetized to you. Others will collapse in your presence. Don't take it personally. That's what happens when raw frequency enters a world of masks. And here's the final truth of this part, the part most won't tell you. This path does not guarantee love, fame, or ease. But it does guarantee something far more valuable: freedom. Not the kind of freedom where you escape reality. The kind where you realize you are reality. You are the force behind the curtain. You are the code that breaks the simulation. You are the one your ancestors whispered about, the one the system feared, the one the shadows bowed to. And if you've made it this far, if every word here ignites something in your blood, then you already know it's time. So I'll ask you one more question, not for your mind, but for your soul. What would your life look like if you stopped pretending you weren't chosen? Would you speak differently? Walk differently? Would you cut cords that no longer feed you? Would you finally claim the life only your shadow self could build? Everything you want is on the other side of surrender. Everything you fear is already behind you. You are not walking toward your power. You are remembering it. And now that you know, now that you feel it in your bones, you can't unknow it. Apocalypse of the self, walking as a god in the flesh without losing your humanity. There is a moment on this path, a quiet, terrifying moment when the final veil lifts. It doesn't come with lightning or drum rolls. It arrives in silence. After everything has been stripped, after you've surrendered every identity, every attachment, every illusion, after the pain has burned so deep into your bones that even your shadow is exhausted, that's when it happens. You open your eyes, and for the first time you see. Not with sight, with knowing. You don't feel like a person anymore. You feel like a presence, like something ancient, something cosmic, something so big it barely fits inside your skin. And yet you are still human, still breathing, still bleeding, still waking up in the same body. That's the paradox of the final form. You don't ascend out of your humanity. You merge with it. You become divinity in flesh. And that is the true apocalypse, not the end of the world, but the end of your false self. The word apocalypse means revelation. And that's exactly what happens. You realize that you were never the mask, never the pain, never the roles. You were the force behind all of it, the one watching, the one choosing, the one who decided to come here not to escape the system, but to infiltrate it. You came not to transcend reality, but to bend it. And when that knowing settles in your bones, everything changes. You stop reacting. You stop chasing. You stop fearing. Instead, you begin orchestrating. You become the storm that walks gently. You speak less, but when you do, the room goes silent. You no longer explain yourself. You emanate, and those who can feel it, they follow. Not because you ask them to, but because your frequency is now a command. But here's the most dangerous part of this stage. Power without grounding becomes delusion. When you awaken to your God frequency, ego will try to hijack it. It will whisper, "You're above them. You're chosen. You don't need to feel." This is the final trap, the last illusion. Because the moment you believe you are beyond humanity, you lose the very reason you came here. You didn't incarnate to become a floating light being. You came to bleed with purpose, to love with fire, to walk through cities and forests and deserts carrying codes in your DNA. You came to feel everything, not escape it. That's what makes you unstoppable, not that you're above pain, but that you can walk through pain and still create worlds from it. The strongest demonic dark chosen ones are not the ones who scream their power. They are the ones who carry it like a sacred weapon. Quiet, sharp, focused. They don't crave followers, they create ripples. They shift timelines in silence. They don't need thrones. They build temples in hearts. And they still cry. They still shake. They still stare at the ceiling some nights wondering if they're crazy. That's because they haven't lost their humanity. They've evolved it. They've turned it into an instrument of transformation. They've learned how to sit in grief without drowning, how to hold rage without exploding, how to touch others without leaking their energy. That's the real mastery, not control, containment. You will know you've reached your final form when you stop needing to prove anything, when you can be surrounded by chaos and still feel centered. When someone disrespects you and your first instinct is stillness, not reaction. When your life becomes art, not performance. When you can feel every dimension of yourself, the demon, the God, the human, and not flinch. That's when you become dangerous in the most sacred way. Because now you are untouchable. Not because you don't feel, but because you've become so real that nothing false can hold power over you. And now, listen closely, because this is the closing code, the final message. the one you've been waiting to hear your entire life. Ready? Ready. You are not broken. You never were. You are not cursed. You were sent. You are not too much. You are exactly enough to collapse the old world and birth a new one. Every scar is a sigil. Every loss was a portal. Every betrayal was a redirection. And every dark night was preparing you to carry the fire, or not for others, for yourself. Because once you can carry it for yourself, your very existence becomes a torch that lights the way for others without you even trying. So what now? Now you walk differently. You speak as if your words shape reality, because they do. You move as if your energy is sacred, because it is. You protect your peace like a kingdom. You choose your circle like a ritual. You let go of anything that doesn't align with your highest frequency, not because you're better, but because your mission is too pure to be diluted. You stop negotiating with people who still want the old version of you. You stop explaining your shadow. You stop apologizing for your fire. Because you've earned this. Every tear, every death, every rebirth. You didn't just survive the path, you became the path. You didn't just wake up, you remembered. And now you carry something no one can steal. Not power, but presence. Not knowledge, but embodiment. Not belief, but knowing. So ask yourself one final time, now that you know who you are, what kind of world will you create just by being? Because we're watching, and we feel you, and we're waiting. Not for you to become something more, but for you to fully be what you already are. Welcome to your throne. Welcome to the war behind the veil. Welcome to your final form.